See, look, record button's on now.
Done and dusted.
I'm
Broken
just gonna
nails.
go away like that. Right, this is the bit where it makes you uncomfortable because I have to do that. Like, hey, welcome to the podcast.
That's alright.
Yeah, I know, but it's just...
Do it a couple of times, and then when you've got the right one, then we'll start.
Yeah.
Oh, no, mate.
Yeah. Hey, heart healers, welcome to Heal the Hurt, episode 4. Today I have I'm trying to figure out, what did we say? Today I've got one of my friends on the show. How do we introduce that? In fact, I don't even need to answer that. I can just be like, how do we introduce that? And then that can be...
Yeah?
Yeah, okay, cool.
That's fine.
Yeah, nice.
That works.
Organic.
Organic.
Hey, heart healers, welcome to episode 4 of Heal the Hurt podcast. I'm your host, William Samuel, and today I have a friend on the show. I don't know, how else would you introduce that? Are we mates?
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah, well, this is Karl, guys. Karl is from Belfast. If you're watching the video, he looks a little bit like me as well. He's got a big beard. I have no beard, but we look sort of similar.
We'll do a wee face mash up for you at the end.
Yeah, stay tuned for more. So I guess I wanted to bring Karl on today because, again, like some of the previous guests and some previous friends, we share a similar outlook and belief on life and the world, and I suppose similar backgrounds and journeys. And I guess I just wanted to bring another person on to bounce those ideas back and forth with, and hopefully we can all learn something from that today. So, and I'll just point out as well, quickly, that a lot of what me and Karl talk about here is going to be fairly novel for me. While we're friends, I don't actually know Karl deeply in depth, so this will be quite an organic, I suppose, conversation, because I'm going to learn just as much about him today as you. So, Karl...
and the same vice versa.
Yes, and the same vice versa. Yes. So, where are you from?
I'm from Belfast, mate.
Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland.
Belfast.
Purebred.
Born and raised.
Not far from you, though.
Far enough, thankfully. You wouldn't want to be where I'm from. Coleraine, miserable place.
Oh, well, we're both far from home now.
That's why we're in the sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, man, what brought you... Why'd you come to Australia?
Well, I think I pretty much always knew I wanted to go to Australia, to be honest. I had my grandfather, whenever he was a kid, he came over on a ship to Australia and just came over to work and travelled for a couple of years, and he left. Not a convict.
Not a convict, okay. One of the lucky ones.
Yeah, one of the lucky ones. And some of the stories he used to tell was just amazing, though. You know, it was a different life, not like the life that I know of and that I grew up in back home, especially the difference in how he would tell the stories as well, because he lived so much through the troubles back home, and then he'd also lived in Australia for a while, so it was very interesting to hear a perspective that was like that was kind of from both ends of the wheel back then whenever it was what it was, and also so much more difficult to get to Australia. So I felt like for him, the 2 years that he came here and he lived here, he grew enough and became what he wanted to become, and went home as someone else, you know. And he was such an interesting man as he grew up, then always interested in people and religions. And I think in the core of it all, that's what pushed me to then want to go to Australia the exact same way. I thought, like, I'll leave home, I'll go to Australia because Australia has all the answers, you know. It'll give me everything that I want to know about life, and a lot of answers that would kind of connect me with my grandfather as well, in the way he would think and the way he would act, you know. He only started to learn to play cricket because he came to Australia, and then I grew up playing cricket with him. Not something you do very often in Belfast, you know.
Cricket is not a sport taken kindly to at home.
It's not like lawn bowls, you know, where there's one in every corner.
Yeah, I guess you're saying about Australia, coming here to learn a lot of things. I think, at least for me anyway, this country has been a catalyst of growth and change for me. There's been a lot of quite painful lessons that I have learned since I came here. I almost feel I'm more of a man, like I've finally become a man since I've been in this country. You know, I don't know if you would agree with that, but
do you think they're more painful because you're by yourself in Australia? Like, because we leave home and we're separate from all our root connections, so everything that we go through, do you think that's enhanced? or do you think we enhance it by like not forcing, but pushing ourselves? We move every week. We're staying in hostels and sharing rooms with lots of different people, and a lot of interactions are going on. Do you reckon it's more painful because of that, or because?
I don't know. I hadn't considered that. It very well could be, because at least for us, we're pretty much as far away from our home and family as we possibly could be. So at least, again, for us from our part of the world, yes, because this is where you can come to finally be completely separate from your family, find out who you are, build your own life.
Yeah.
So it absolutely could. You don't really have a support network here.
Yeah.
You know, you go through all these trials, tribulations, and you don't really have anyone. You've got your hot friends in the hostel, and they sort of become your family.
Yeah. And when you do find someone, it is real. You know, when you trust someone or you're in it, then you can fully trust and you can fully open up, you know. Whereas even with your family, you find you can have a lot of restricted information, stuff that you don't want to talk about, things that you hide from them just because
your family,
their perception on you, and also how it might affect them and worrying about you. Whereas to have those people and connections that you make far from home, that allows you to really open up and be yourself, then it kind of helps you. Like, as painful as it is, I almost find it easier, because I'd rather have a friend help me through a hard time than have my family members watch me in pain, you know?
I get that. I actually spoke about this in one of the earlier podcast episodes with Charlie. It's like, but I think it's because your family are sort of, because they have that, you know, deeper emotional investment in you, and it's a different kind of connection to the connection you'll make with like me or you or Ellie or someone like that, you know. It's different. They're sort of biased because they've seen the version of you, you know, growing up and up and up, and they've seen that.
Yeah.
I think it's harder for them to sort of accept and acknowledge that, okay, you're living your own life, you're going to have to go through this stuff. You're maybe not the same person that they knew you to be before you would have left, because traveling, it definitely changes you, and it can be hard, I think, for people at home to accept that change. Yeah,
definitely. And it's that level of expectation that really kind of holds you back in the end, and that's where you get that comfort from being abroad too, because when you are having those connections with people, you know the expectation is virtually nothing. You know, they know you in your rawest form, and that's it. But whenever people see you, like even me being a younger kid, I was always a high achiever and always pushing for these high goals, and even in football, sports, whatever it was, I was at it 7 days a week, just doing as much as I can and doing well at it. So then by the time I was getting to like 16, 17, 18, and you're really going into big boy leagues when it comes to either education or sports or whatever it is, once you hit that age, you're going into the grown up stage, and having that level of expectation, the defeat feels so much worse. You know, you're on a pedestal for so long, and everyone's proud of you, and you know all your trophies are hanging in the living room. But by the time then when you do get to the day that you do fail once, or you have a bad match or a bad fight, then you feel like you lose hard whenever you have someone to sort of what you feel like letting down, you know.
Do you, because again, and there's another reason why, like, because I wanted you on here, because me and you share a lot of similarities, not just we're sort of similar in appearance, but there's a lot of personality traits and sort of psychological traits are similar as well. Also, as a high achiever as well, I push myself, and I want to be the best that I can be in whatever I'm doing. I always try to give 100%, but that can be sometimes my downfall, and I'm not sure if it's the same as you, because I put a lot of internal perfectionistic standards on myself that if I don't achieve 100%, then I fail. So I don't know if it's the same for you.
I think that's what getting away from home basically allowed me to let go of very, very highly. Like I suddenly moved away and realised that there was one, I can be whatever version I wanted to be, and I never had that feeling before, you know, like and this feeling carries on through life. It was just like I was saying the other day, you don't have to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago.
Well, you aren't.
And you aren't, you know, but even your mindsets and your thoughts, like there's one expectation of yourself where you try to hold yourself to your word, like your word is your bond.
Yes.
But that expectation of yourself is then, like you're saying, it can hold you back, it can be your hindrance, where you're expecting a wee bit too much of yourself when everyone is on a learning curve that can never really be truly learned. You know, you just have to discover and grow. And for me, that's what leaving home. As soon as I left home, I realized that the people I was around, they were sometimes temporary. You know, having them temporary people in my life began that feeling of confidence of where, no, I can meet these people, and they move from the hostel, and I meet new people, and I'm somebody different. I'm somebody that has grown since I've moved into this hostel. Even, you know, my minds and my views have changed, and what I've started to read about has changed, you know, because of the influences and impacts that I'm having on me. So I really, once I let go of all those inhibitions or judgments that could ever hinder me, then I was fine, you know. I felt like I could do anything, and I wasn't going to be hurt for it, you know. Or I wasn't afraid of death even or anything, you know. A lot of these feelings and fears that I had, I really truly let go of. And I think then I got to that pinnacle point, that peak where it's like I'm able to let go and just be my true self. Then I went to farm work, and farm work felt like conditioning, you know. It felt like, okay, I can finally be myself, but then I can't just click and be there. I can't just because I came to Australia, it's not just magical and it fixes me. I obviously, you know, have to go through a reckoning of some sort, and that's what it was like going to do farm work and going through those hardships and having, you know, no money and having strains in relationships, but really close friendships, and being able to put your body through different levels to the point of where you didn't even think you could do those things, you know, every day, and put your body through that much pain, but how much you can endure is crazy, and it's really like you're breaking yourself down to prepare yourself for who you're trying to be or who you're growing in towards to be. And it was a perfect blend of all those things that kind of led me to the point of where I could let go of those expectations of and fear of feeling, and try and focus on everyday life. Like every day something new will happen, and it'll change me in a way that's either going to be better or worse. It just depends on how I look at it. And if I change myself for the better every time and every day, then eventually I'll it's trial and error. It's like anything, you know. I have to become comfortable, or I have to become good with it, you know.
Well, you have to be okay with failing and making mistakes, you know. You can still achieve, you can still be successful, but you're going to make mistakes. And that's something I've changed that mindset now. It's still a work in progress, obviously. It is day by day, but that's what would have held me back all the time, especially having that high achiever, perfectionistic mindset that if I don't do everything 100%, then I am a failure. It wasn't worth doing. It wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
But that obviously comes from upbringing as well, that internal critic, you know, the way your parents speak to you. You sort of internalize all of that, and then you carry that with you. So it takes unlearning. I just wanted to circle back there just for people, because unless you've lived in Australia, nobody will know what farm work is.
Yeah.
So farm work is basically what anyone outside of Australia has to do in order to stay in this country for another year. So me and Karl actually met on a strawberry farm picking strawberries. Now, you get paid per kilogram of strawberries, and I guess the amount of money you earn varies based on your physical fitness or your physical capabilities, but for me, I was earning approximately maybe $100 a day if I was really good at it, and you're bent over all day, your back's bust, your hamstrings are bust, so you're lucky by the end of the week if you have $500-600 in the bank.
Yeah.
And you have to do that for 90 days, 3 months solid. So it's, when he is saying it's, you know, a reckoning, it's brutal, hard work, almost comparable, sort of, people say it's sort of similar to slave labour, like the way the conditions sometimes you have to live in on those farms are quite bad, but ultimately it's a small price to pay to be here. So
yeah, definitely. And without that experience, you wouldn't have the same level of appreciation in the same way either. You know, it's like you can't get to the top of the mountain without actually walking and climbing those 8 hours, risking death or risking, you know, an accident just to get to that point, and the view just feels so much better, you know.
Well, that's what we were saying downstairs earlier. It's the journey, you know. It's cool to get to the end point. You can have your vision, you can have what you see and you want to get to, but it's the day by day, it's the steps. It's the journey is the part that you sort of relish the most. You can appreciate it improving slightly, moment by moment, day by day, the process.
Yeah, for sure. I done 101 days.
You didn't do strawberry farm solid though, did you?
No. I came from another farm to the strawberry farm. I was in Gatton and I cut lettuce and picked tomatoes and lemons and string cucumbers and done all sorts of stuff.
Which one of them would have been the most physically demanding or challenging?
I think the cutting lettuce, definitely.
Because that's in the ground as well, so you're bent over.
Bent over, constant non-stop, tractors moving, gotta wake up, you gotta be at the farm for 3 a.m.
At the farm for 3?
3
I don't think
a.m.
we started strawberries. I think that was a 6:30 start, maybe 7.
Yeah,
It wasn't
normally
that early.
6:30.
Yeah.
Had to be there for no later than 7 to start at strawberries. But in lettuce, we were getting picked up. The ute would come and pick us up about maybe 2:30 in the morning. You step outside. I go to bed maybe 9 o'clock every night, and then I wake up at 1:30, 2 a.m. and everything's already packed and lunch ready to go. You know, I don't have much energy that time. I have my coffee in a cup and I step outside, and you just look up and you can see the entire Milky Way all over the sky. Like every morning, it was worth it. Like that's what made it really worth it. But then, because of where it is, it's in a place called Toowoomba, so it's about 3 hours west of Brisbane.
Yeah.
Really dodgy. Really, like it's a place called Gatton. She was on the news. She's been fined like maybe 10 times $50,000 and stuff.
What, the farm owner?
The
Like
contractor. Yeah. So she, like it was a really, really dodgy place where we were staying, but yeah, you were up in the mountains and it was maybe -1, -3 degrees in the morning right the way up until 7 a.m. Then 7 a.m. hits and you're getting 17, 18. Lunchtime is 21, 22. Like it was intense for the body. Really, I think that's what probably messed me up the most. It wasn't the waking up early and the hours and the hard work. It was the conditions that we were in. I mean, you were jumping 20 to 25 degrees in temperature in the space of 8 hours while working, and your body temperature's already heightened too. And you can't stop. The tractor does not stop. It goes into, I think max is 4 gear. I think the most we ever got it up to is 3rd gear, and you cut lettuce and you set it behind you and it goes on a conveyor belt, and that's it. You can't stop or the tractor will crack in the back of the head.
Dangerous, like.
Yeah, man.
See,
it
people
was
don't
not
understand
nice.
that.
I know. It's it's no joke. And then once everyone has the rules and it's very tailored towards your abilities too.
Yes.
So at one point there's an end runner. The end runner will stop cutting the lettuce whenever the packer says that the bins are full, and the bins hold like over 200 to 350 kilos of lettuce. Once the bin is full, the end man jumps out, runs to the end of the line, jumps in the ute. I have to take over his lane for cutting, so I'm cutting 2 lettuces now and trying to set it behind me as fast as I can. And then as soon as he's reversing the ute up, the tractor doesn't stop. The ute is driving while the tractor is driving. I run round to the back and I help push off the 250 kilos of lettuce onto the back of the ute while they're both moving. And then that's it. Once we're done, we'll get the new bins on and we're ready to go to cut more lettuce again.
See, I think for people listening to that, they'll probably be like, it's just doing a hard day's work. But it really is important to emphasise that it's non-stop all day. Like, you don't really get
brutal.
a break, and it's the conditions. It's especially the heat. Like, I remember being on the solar farm for mine, and I would have a pair of long johns on, my work trousers, I'd have a vest, a t-shirt, a hoodie, a coat and another coat, just to get to work in the morning.
Yeah.
And then by 10 o'clock, you're dripping in sweat. You have to take all of it off because it's roasting. Like.
And you're carrying half your suitcase with you
Yeah.
to work.
And like, you're working, like, boys back home, like anyone back home in the UK, like, you're working in like 35, 40 degrees some days, like in the desert, in that inland area. It's desertous.
Yeah,
So it's brutal on the body,
it is.
tough on the mind too, but I suppose you're just there to stay here
Yeah.
long term or save money. But yeah, not an easy life.
And it's just like anything though, like that's part of your story then, you know, if that's what you want, then that's the only way you can get it. And so you really do sit down and you accept your fate essentially,
Yeah.
you know, as long as
It's a
you're
sacrifice.
you have to be brave to just make the decision, you know, to kind of go, look, even give it a go. You can, that's once again being allowing yourself to feel and say, like, it's even fine. Like, I moved loads of farms. I started in Gatton, it was terrible. And after 4 weeks we had to leave. We went to Mooloolaba, we done farm work there. The season finished early, so we didn't get our days finished. Had to then move from Mooloolaba and move down to Coffs Harbour and pick blueberries. And it started getting rainy season, so some weeks you're working 3 days, some weeks you're working 2 days, trying to make days up as best you can. But yeah, like it never felt like failing. It felt like just something you had to do. no matter what it took to get there, you know.
Yes.
So even if though it was failing, like even though it did feel like failing, the emphasis of no matter whether I'm failing or not, I need to get this done and fast. That pressure was what really pushed it through to try and, you know, like get the days done. And I think I ended up appreciating the fact that I could move around. You know, I did go to other farms. Some people, they manage to go to a place and they can do all their 90 days in one place, and they save good money, they have a good time, and it's nice. But I really felt like I got to live in these towns when I was farming, you know, really discovering Coffs Harbour, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in the world, and yet not very infamously known in Australia for being that beautiful, you know. You have to actually live there for a short period of time to really appreciate the serenity of the place and what it's like.
I'm going to take it back there to obviously the conditions, you know, and I think it's important again to emphasise this just before I go on, but the doing this regional farm work, you're not guaranteed work every day of the week, you know, like the weather can affect it and the crop can affect it, so it's not even, sometimes it's a case of survival. Like you might only get 2 days of work a week, and then from those 2 days you maybe have enough money to pay your rent. So if you don't have savings, you're in a pretty tight situation, and I think that affects quite a lot of people as well, because you're not guaranteed to be able to live. It's survival.
Yeah.
But because you have that end goal in mind, you're only there in order to be able to stay here for another year, so you kind of sacrifice it. But when I went to do my solar farm work, my second farm after we worked together on that strawberry farm, I suppose I just have to be careful how I tell this story. I think if I'm being truthful, I know now looking back at this that I was the cause of what happened to me that night, but we went to a party, like an after work party. It was for Anzac Day, so it would be pretty much bang on this time. Like we're recording this like 3 years ago, and we've been working all day, up really early, dehydrated. So this is like in the middle of summer, so it's like 40 degrees. So, you know, you're drinking water, but you're not hydrating your body. You're just working, sweating it all out. So I got a lot drunker quicker than I was expecting, and went to this house party, didn't really know anyone. And I remember at the end of the night, I was leaving. I was like, I'm really tired and I want to go home here because I can't be arsed. I don't know anyone, and I'm not enjoying being drunk. And I remember going to leave the front door, and there was like these two people like sort of like pushing each other. I remember getting in the middle of them and, like, you know, pushing them apart to sort of separate the fight. And then someone choked me from behind, like they put their arm around my neck, sort of like a sleeper hold. And then he held on, and like 3 other dudes started punching me, and they punched my lip or my tooth through my lip. There's like the muscle in my face has been torn, so there's a big scar there. I can't smile. I smile sort of lopsidedly now. It's subtle, but it's enough for me to notice. I remember when that dude was choking me, man, like it's the first time in my life I felt completely powerless, like completely out of control. I couldn't pull his arm off me. I thought I was going to die. Like so close to just passing out. Scariest moment of my life, man. But I had to go to hospital. I got signed off work. I got stitches in my face. I had to wear one of those neck braces because they bruised all the muscles in my neck. And I took like, I think 2 days off work. I had bruised ribs as well. I got booted on the ground and they bruised the sternum bone on my chest. So I had to take a few days off. And I remember I had to go into work, and I didn't really know who did it. So I was going into work with these big cuts all over my face, and I had to go in with, now I think it's important to highlight here that I have suffered with PTSD and anxiety and depression most of my life, and being put into that environment after being assaulted. So it's a strong word to use, I was in a fight, I suppose, effectively. But I remember going into work, man, and having to not know who did that to me for 90 days. I stayed in that farm for 90 days solid, every day not knowing who did it to me. Every day going in there with that, you know, like, who did this, looking over your shoulder, is it going to happen again? You know, already been through a traumatic episode with that happening, and now to be stuck in this place, stuck in this farm with these people that did this to me, not knowing who they were, not being able to, if I wanted to, take revenge because there was more of them than me. And I remember, man, the only thing that kept me there is to suffer through that anxiety and depression. I didn't really leave my room after. I just ate chocolate and crisps and shit, never left the hostel. I remember the only thing that kept me there was to stay. And I had to suffer profoundly to stay here, but it's all worth it, I guess. You know, I had to see a psychologist, and it reawakened a lot of earlier traumas from my childhood. diagnosed with PTSD as a result of that, and anxiety and depression stemming from that, but further back to my childhood.
Yeah.
But as you say, you have that goal and you're not going to let anything get in the way of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's that perfectionistic or that high achiever mindset. It's like, there is nothing is going to stop me getting what I want from this, which is to stay.
It is. It's a strange drive. It really is. Like, just like whenever you see in the movies, just the same way, you know, like whenever you see the hero's been knocked down and he has to brutally go through all this suffering before he can actually like, you know, win at the end. And that's exactly what it sort of feels like.
Do you think it's possible? Because obviously, for me in my journey so far, the lessons that have been the most painful for me have been the most important and, you know, the most awakening ones. But do you think it's possible to, I suppose, evolve and grow and lift yourself up and elevate without suffering? Is it possible for us to learn the lessons we need to learn without going through severe hardships?
I think the majority of the time, the suffering that we cause ourselves beyond a moment of happening is just pain that we cause ourselves as well. So yeah, I think that whenever you go through the scenario, this is the lesson that needs learned. And it's essentially, if it's a lesson that needs learned, then you'll not have the answer until you learn it, you know. No matter how long it takes. Like, some people, they can study for a maths exam 1 month and they'll pass, and some people it takes 2 years for them to get their maths exam. That's just what they have to go through, you know, to get their maths exam and to get the lessons learnt. But yeah, like a lot of the suffering that we go through, we put ourselves through that. We don't, it's not just the scenario is only the moment that it sort of happens, and you were part of a violent act and a violent crime that affected you, and luckily didn't leave you too disfigured, you know, like you said, you still had like you can't smile properly, but it could have been worse, and it could have been a lot better, you know. It couldn't have happened that night. Maybe you wouldn't have even, you know, gotten drunk if you weren't working all day in the sun, and if you weren't living this sort of lifestyle that wasn't allow you to actually sustain your own awareness. Then it maybe wouldn't have changed things. You still had to go through the pain that you had to go through to get to the answer at the end, and you could have maybe just went into work and took that lesson, and maybe it wasn't as big of a lesson you had to learn. Maybe you'd already learned it before, and you know, it only took you a week to get over and realize, no, I'm stronger than this, you know, I don't need to be looking over my shoulder, you know, I trust in my path and that I'm in the right place. Or maybe, you know, you can have the confidence to get back. And I think that's why a lot of people who really do try to go into themselves and find those inner answers to try and fix a lot of their problems, as opposed to short fixes and short things that are just going to constantly, you know, fix it there and then. So yeah, I think if humans were able to actually take each bad moment that they experience and view it as a single moment, as opposed to something that iconically directs their life or in a direction or defines them. Exactly, because they're the only person that can give the definition to yourself is yourself. No one else can do that to you, no matter how brutal the incident is, or no matter how amazing, or, you know, sometimes it's love that hurts people and not actually fists and things like that, you know. And whenever you're hurt, it's still the same. It's still the body being under attack, you know. And whenever you talk about love, that's a perfect example to kind of show that, yes, this person has in a way, they've hurt you and they can destroy you, but it is you who can also hold on to that destruction, or you can let it evolve into the lesson that needs to be learnt, you know. Because we'll have plenty. I mean, as humans, I'm sure we'll have plenty of lessons to be learned over the years. And
I don't think it ever ends, does it?
Yeah, it won't, you know. And the challenges will just keep coming, and the hurdles will still be there. But, you know, every time that you trip and you hit a hurdle, you have to go back to the beginning and try the hurdles again, you know. And the more you keep tripping and falling, the determination that you have to kind of get out of it is what will get you out of those funks a bit quicker. Just like in the farm, you know, the determination was to stay in Australia, and we don't always have that same motivation. I mean, for us, the motivation to stay in Australia from being home is huge.
Yes.
It's like people, you know, get the equivalent of someone getting into their favorite university or something. You know, that it is a life change and a lifestyle that obviously suits us both perfectly. We, you know, we both wanted to integrate into that kind of life and be outdoors and be in nature. You know, and that's what's offered here. That's what people can have in a life in Australia.
And importantly, you've missed the most important one: sunshine.
Sunshine.
And no rain.
yeah. It's cold today. It's 17 degrees.
But it is actually cold. Like, you know, you're walking around with a coat on, but people back home are like, that's time to get down the park or the pub, shorts, t-shirts, and wear coats and long trousers. Like,
yeah.
freezing.
Speedo Thursdays. No.
Maybe for you, mate. Speedo Fridays for me.
Yeah, fair.
When you're talking there about lessons, I think because obviously I've stopped drinking, taking drugs. I abused drugs, alcohol most of my adult life from the age of 14 until 27. But that experience on that farm where I got choked and battered, and like looking back at that all my own cause. I was the one that chose to get drunk that night. I was the one that chose to do what I did. I was the one that chose to be there. I was the one that chose to go to that event rather than just going home, listening to my body, giving my body what it needed. But I was still trying to be that person that I had constructed, that I thought everyone else wanted me to be. Like, if I'm still that party dude, if I'm the one that always likes to get drunk and fucked up, then that's how I win friends or admiration or respect. Try to be a tough guy, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
But I look back at all of the events of my life that have landed me in situations similar to that. It is one, either because of drugs and alcohol, or two, because I'm trying to be someone that I'm not. And those lessons, life keeps circling back at me and keeps circling back. And I don't know if anyone listening or even if you can relate, but I find that life will keep hitting you with the same lesson and keep hitting and hitting and hitting until it will finally just make the decision for you. Whatever you're not taking from the signs that you're being presented with, if you're not willing to accept that lesson, to make that change that you know you need to make for your own growth, for your own path, for your own evolution, life will just eventually just make it impossible for you not to change. And that is where the pain comes.
Yeah. And we're not just talking about sort of mental pain and you know, fear of being a failure. It actually gets to the point where your body really feels pain, like it starts representing and recreating itself in little pockets, little parts of your body that holds on to those previous like decisions or crossroads that you've went down, and they are now manifesting themselves as
Physical pains. Like you, for example, you've got low back pain at the minute. It's been kind of recurring, and that you don't really know why it's there. You haven't really done anything that would kind of provoke it. And myself, I woke up yesterday morning, like I told you today, and I've got pain in my groin. Haven't done anything to provoke it, but there's emotional stuff and spiritual stuff going on, and that's all something that I haven't processed. Now my body is telling me, problem. You need to listen. You need to fix it. Change. Something's not right.
And not even just through physical pains, you know, like even through your sleep, you can learn through so much just what your dreams are maybe telling you. Not everybody remembers their dreams, but like everyone is unique and different, and everyone has their own representations. You know, some people will go a bit more crazy in the head before their groin would get sore, you know, and there's definitely different effects. But it's like you said, you know, the universe will keep telling you and will keep trying to give you the information that you need. And all you have to do is be willing to listen. And it's just like it's just like angel numbers or all these like specific times of the day, 11:11. It doesn't just become a thing that, you know, of meaning. It also becomes a routine for yourself. You know, you start checking your phone, you're seeing it at 11:11. Your body's getting in sync with that, you know, and you're actually becoming more aware of what it is you're doing at that time, when you're doing it at that time, like what you're doing it for, and what's actually going on right now. Like, what should I be looking at? You know, where are the warning signs, or where are the signs to push me in the direction, whether it be someone who looks like your friend, you know, there's no reason why there's possibly a reason why that person looks like your friend. You should probably go and say hello and see what they're doing that day, you know?
Remember you said that the other night, and I actually, after a couple of nights later, I went out for dinner with Charlie, partner, and I met this busker a few weeks ago, and I stopped. I was on the way to work, and I walked past him because I had no money, and I went to ATM to get him some money because I was like, "That's cool, man. I appreciate you playing this music for us at 8 in the morning."
Yeah.
And I gave him the money and chat with him a little bit. Hadn't seen him up and down that central station. Hadn't seen him since. And then he hopped on the bus, same bus as us.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak to him, but I remember that conversation. You were like, if that happens, you should probably speak to him. But I didn't. I held myself back.
Yeah.
You know?
But then, and that might be a one-off situation, and sometimes kind of like one-off situations will pay off on, you meet a nice person again, you have a nice interaction, and it can just mean that. Or sometimes it could mean that maybe that busker is looking for some help with something, or he's able to help you with something, and you just don't know. It's a bit like the book The Alchemist, where you have all these different characters in your life that you don't know what their purpose is yet. But if you don't ask, or you don't try and dig to find out, or you don't try and experience it to find out, you'll not know what they're there for in the first place, you know? And that's why we have best friends. And some people just take it for granted that they have a best friend, but to really appreciate what you have, like, you have to realize why that person's your best friend. What are they helping you through? And that way you can then utilize the moments and the lessons that you're learning, and you can draw back on them with experience, or draw back on them with a reason, like a purpose. And yeah, that's like, it's really motivating to put yourself out of your comfort zone with that mindset, to go and talk to a stranger because you totally trust and believe that you should, even if there's no reason why you should. But there's always some form of symbolism, there's always some reason behind it,
yes.
like maybe the street you're on is actually your name, maybe it's St. Andrews Avenue, so it's not a coincidence, call in and have a coffee in St. Andrews Avenue if your name's Andrew, like, why not? And if nothing happens, but it'll be the same as any other cafe you would have went to then, and it still has the potential to have multiple opportunities happen in any given moment. It's only when you retract and you sort of bring yourself away from the world around you, and you take yourself away from that life, do you really, I think, sort of truly suffer sometimes. You kind of take everything upon yourself, and you've let go of the outer universe that you trust in. You've let go of that moment where you always seem to catch the bus just on time, or you always seem to get a green light. Now you're getting red lights, now you're missing the bus, and you just don't want to leave the house. And there's something internally that has a yearning, you have a lesson to learn within yourself that you can't, it's not a massive sign in the face, but it is in life. You will notice that sometimes life is just going sweet and perfect, and then something clicks and something just goes wrong, and you have to start picking up the pieces. But during those moments, like, it's always a new door. Like, it doesn't matter about if there's any door closing behind you. I don't even believe a door closes on anything. I always believe that you walk in to a door and nothing closes behind you. There's always pathways open to the past. Like, you can always connect with a friend from 5 years ago, or you can even, like, some people can speak to the dead, some people can relate to their past lives. There's many different ways in which we can go back and look into the past with a perspective without living in it,
Yeah, me and Charlie actually look at, and have discussed, and we've actually been to a couple of sort of spiritually embedded workshops about past life healing and familial healing. Like, we will carry, I don't know, maybe this could all be very new to people listening to this, but familial trauma is passed on down through our genes, through generation to generation to generation to generation, and these cycles of pain and suffering and trauma keep repeating, and they will just keep repeating forever until someone breaks the cycle. And for me and my family, I know this is all, like, certain behaviours I have, and certain fears and certain pains and certain, I don't know, memories and stuff. I know it's not from me, it's coming from somewhere else, but it's coming to me because, I don't know, and this could sound sort of egotistical or something, I think, I don't know, that I'm capable of breaking that cycle so it's not passed on to the next generation, Yeah. And it's like, I know for myself, I want to have kids one day, I want to be a dad, but not until I have done the necessary work to make reprimands and reparations with my own body, my own life, and past life,
Yeah.
so that doesn't continue.
Yeah. And it's having that awareness that immediately sets you out into the next step, comparing to where your family's rituals have been, you know. And it might not even be for long, you know. It might only be rituals that have been in place for 100 years, and you know it's a cycle that is coming to an end, and that you are in the next stage of, you know, transitioning and not carrying on that same motive, you know, or the same motives of life or the same intentions. So just having that awareness is already step one, you know, already something that you're able to pass on to your kids or whoever it may be, your listeners.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the important thing. Like, me and you, obviously, sitting here, we have developed that level of self-awareness and sort of external, spiritual, more connected awareness, you know?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people still struggle with that, and that they're unaware of these things in themselves. They're unaware of, as we were just talking about, these coincidences, if you even want to call it that. I don't believe in that anymore.
Yeah.
If that's happening, if something like that pops up in my life, it's there for a reason. I don't know what, but it's there. And as you said, you should follow it. You almost need to follow it to find out what is the universe presenting me here. But I think that lack of awareness is what most people are lacking nowadays. Not only in their own lives, they're going through this pain, whatever pain, emotional or psychological or even physical, whatever is causing them discomfort or unhappiness. If you aren't aware of why that's happening or what's causing it, you can't change it. And then you're trapped in that cycle forever. The awareness, definitely, of yourself, at least to make a personal change anyway, has to be key. But how do you develop it? How did you get to, I guess, where you are with your own understanding of life, the world, and yourself? What have you done to develop that skill? Point out here as well, Karl meditates about 12 hours a day as well, so that probably puts him at an unfair advantage to most people. But
I think from a lot of it's came from the people that I've had interaction with and I've met. Like a lot of the people I've crossed paths with have been very, very intricate models for the way I've wanted to live or I've wanted to sort of gauge my life. And I've been super lucky. I mean, when I went to my primary school, I went to a very, very good primary school. All the teachers were great at their job, and I even went back, you know, to see them again when I was older, and I had a good relationship with them. And the same in my high school. Like, all the teachers I got in high school were the teachers for me. Like, I never felt like I couldn't study or I wasn't getting on well with the teacher. It really felt like no matter what, I was being put on the right path. I was connecting with these people and I was accepting these connections as well. I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I was there for help. And then later on in life, whenever I went to university, and then traveling too, it just developed even more. Can I
just interject here? Are you speaking retrospectively in the sense that back then, from where you're sitting now, looking back at that, you were just accepting these things, or back then you already had this understanding and awareness that, okay, these people are in my life for a reason and I must follow that? Is that what you're saying, or have I got it mixed up?
I think so. Like, I think I was very aware. Well, it was more I was very trusting.
Right.
I had a lot of trust for the people who were willing to give so much of themselves to me. So I mean, it wasn't just me that got, you know, special treatment. If a kid put in some effort as well, they would maybe go after school and speak to the teacher, and the teacher would help them with their homework. You know, the teachers were always there for me when I needed them for help. And it never felt like special treatment, or it didn't feel like there was anything wrong with me. It just felt like I had to appreciate what I was getting because of the help that I was getting from them. And in my home life, it wasn't quite the same. I mean, I wasn't driven as a high achiever. It was more like I wanted to prove my family, or I wanted to prove people wrong by doing well. Like, and so it wasn't. It never felt like if I was gonna fail that my family was going to put me down or anything like that, but more so that, yeah, like they were already at a point where they just let me be. I was just independent, you know. I didn't have to worry about being home, or you know, if I wanted to cook myself dinner, I'd be cooking myself dinner. If I wanted to stay after school, or stay for football, or go to do anything, yes, I had to be independent, and I had to use maybe some pocket money to pay for the classes or to go to boxing. But at the end of the day, it always felt like it was me that was going to reap the rewards in the end, and that I didn't need to actually impress the people that weren't looking for it. I was really pushing then to impress my teachers. You know, my teachers were giving me all this effort and giving me all this time then, and I was asking for it. You know, I was asking for a way out. I wanted a way to get out of the life of Northern Ireland, of what it was, you know, and all the stories that I'd heard. I just didn't want to be there growing up, and that's why the specific friends that I ended up having were legit friendships, and were people that I really trusted, because I felt like I didn't have any other choice. There was so many bad roads or bad paths that I could have went down in Northern Ireland. Very many opportunities where I wouldn't be who I am today if I had taken them. But I don't know, I felt like I knew who I needed to impress. Like I said, like my teachers were the ones investing their heart and soul into me, and I could feel it, and I wanted to do this for them, you know. I wanted to be a good student. I wanted to be able to express myself as a kid too, you know, and they allowed me to express myself. There was never a silly question. And to add, I went to Hazelwood Integrated College. It was the first multicultural integrated college in Northern Ireland, so the first school where Protestants and Catholics were taught together, as well as a multitude of other cultures, you know, people from India, Poland, Romania, everywhere. So I think being in that environment growing up, that really had a huge effect on who I was and how my mind sort of worked. So then whenever it came into me leaving home, even to go and live by myself, in university, or whenever it came to moving to Australia, I then had this acute awareness of the people that I should be trying to impress. It wasn't that I was trying to impress the smokers in the smoking shed, or trying to impress the guys who were smoking joints because it was cool. No, I knew the people that actually had invested emotion in me, or I could tell the people that actually cared about me from the minute I had a handshake or a hug, or the conversations that we were having, and I wouldn't let that go, you know. I would be a moment of, I don't know how you call it, but it's like divine intervention, where I gotta go to work tomorrow, so I gotta go to bed early. It's 9 o'clock, but then I meet someone that I'm really connecting with. I'll stay up to 2, and I'll just sit and talk with them, and I'll work doesn't matter anymore, because work takes way less priority over the moment that I'm sharing in the moment that I have now, because I know that there's so many paths and wrong roads you can go down. So when you can see the light of the right path, try and take it, you know, try and get the information you're looking for, and try and sort of feed off that energy, because that's the good energy. It's like eating organic vegetables. It's basically having organic friends, you know.
Yeah. But I want to go back down to the that what you mentioned about the paths that we get presented, and especially going down the wrong paths at home, because for anyone not from Northern Ireland, the country that we grew up in, I suppose, is a lot different to others in that part of the world, because we had the Troubles, and the Troubles, as Karl said earlier, is our country has been in pretty much non-stop religious conflict, Catholic Christianity versus Protestant Christianity. I don't know for how many hundreds of years. It's been a long time, and it's divided our country. So if you're of one faith, you can't go to the same school as another, you can't be friends with them, you can't associate with them, you have to dislike them. All of this really negative stuff that's deeply embedded in the culture. And I guess you do get presented with those paths, because growing up with that, you know, this comes from your parents and the families, because they grow up with it, and then their beliefs and values are passed down. You can't like them, they can't like you. And I guess you do. I remember, you know, looking back at all my friends, people I would have hung out with at school, or, you know, maybe people I would have partied with, they all stayed in the country. They all stayed in that, and they weren't able to take themselves out of that. They weren't able to break those cycles of hatred, or particularly drug and alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And I look back at a lot of them people now. I don't really keep in contact with many people from home, because that part of my life, I kind of just turn my back on it. It's like I'm slowly easing back into acknowledging it again and making connection to it, but I'm still not 100% ready to go down that path.
Yeah.
But a lot of those people that I would have known to be partying around the same age, you know, maybe the same school, a lot of people back home, they abuse the drugs and alcohol so much. People our age committing suicide, they're still stuck in that poverty, they're living in the estates, and they're stuck in that alcoholism and on the dole, and just spending money on drugs and hating each other because of football tops.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, over here, away from it, fortunately. Were you exposed to that? Because obviously it's part of our culture. Like Northern Ireland it's a big beer culture. Like, it's, you know, you're a man if you drink pints and, you know, you sit in the pub. You know, were you kind of exposed to that growing up? I suppose you probably would have think your uncles and dad and stuff, but or did you ever get into that as well?
I think from my dad was in the bands growing up, and he was a flute player, really, really good, mostly in it for the musical side. He was quite good musically, like he even sang and stuff too. Like, I think a lot of my opportunities were deferred because I was a part of that community group, you know, like that whole belief that, you know, Protestants and Catholics can get taught together, and it took away those. It gave you the choice to choose, essentially, to choose the direction you wanted to go in. Before, it was very much, you're going to go to a Protestant school and you're going to go to a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
You have no choice in the matter. So even if you want to try something new, you can't try something new because the availability is just not there. And as soon as that door opened, and it basically opened so many more paths and forkways for people to understand, like, the culture. So starting it from education was a great idea, like having that ability. But then growing up in my neighborhood, it was a lot of the people went towards these gangs and towards these groups in fear. Not fear from the group themselves, but fear for their own lives. Most of my friends have went through an experience where it's been they were under attack, or their life, or their family, or their brother, or one of their family members' life was under attack, and they needed help to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
And in the price of being protected then was that you then sign up with that organisation, and you're then a part of that, you know, and they'll help you as long as you help them, and it's a back and forth. And we all know how that goes.
Yes.
But I didn't ever have that kind of presented to me. I never had a situation where I was, you know, fearing for my life. I never felt like I was in a situation where I was actually gonna be attacked or murdered or do something so bad towards somebody else that was actually going to affect my life in such a drastic way. So then, growing up, a lot of those friends that made those choices, they drifted away, you know, they went their own way of life, and I too was then maybe left by myself. But by that time I was already in a multicultural school. I was already having friends from all over Belfast, so I'd moved out of my small town long ago, you know. From I was maybe 12 or 11 years old, I was getting the bus to friends across the city in West Belfast, North Belfast, South Belfast, like everywhere, just through that connection in school. And then we sort of started like drinking, having fun in the streets, but it was very, very controlled. It's like a lot of the friends that I seemed to connect with, or that I ended up having huge parts of my life, they were often a bit older too, like a wee bit wiser. They knew not to just do this or not just to do that, or if someone offers you something, don't just take it, you know. It was very much ingrained in me by people who had experience, who should have been, you know, guiding me in the first place, which was I'm so grateful for, you know, in that sense, because a lot of people, they get put in a situation where their friends aren't really their friends. They don't care. They're just feeding them alcohol, feeding them drugs, and they're saying that they're going to have a good time because of it, and they can't stop. Otherwise, they'll stop having a good time.
Superficial.
Yeah, and it's really like, you know, follow the crowd kind of attitude. It's really that, you know, if you don't do what your friends do, then you're not going to be one of them.
You're a loser. You're not part of the group.
Exactly. You know? And it's not like that. You know, if you find proper friends, they're not going to treat you that way. You know, they're going to be completely. They'll be compassionate about what your fears are and what your worries are, and they'll be helpful. And, you know, if they don't know the answer, they will try and find the answer. You know, like some people, their first time taking drugs is with their friend, and it's their friend's first time too.
Mm-hmm.
And you're both naively doing it together, but at the same time, yous are that much of friends that yous are both helping each other through a scary first time experience, you know. And then you have the people who have already experienced it, and they feel that responsibility then, you know. Like, I felt like I had friends that felt the responsibility of, if I was wanting to try something, I have to do it their way, and I have to try it with them. And it's not to get, and it's to be in controlled environment, you know. It's to be in a place where you feel safe and comfortable, and you're not gonna like go and hurt yourself, you know. It had to be something that was, yeah, like I really admired a lot of my friends for that. And it wasn't like I admired my friends because they looked cool and they took a load of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
No, I admired them because they were so self-aware of everything that they were doing. They weren't just taking stuff or just drinking alcohol just to get drunk. They were taking it for a purpose. They were drinking alcohol to maybe loosen up so as that they can then relax and enjoy their meal or enjoy their night, but not have any more after that. And then they'd have some more again a bit later, you know. And it was much more represented in a way that felt, oh, we're not just drinking to get fucked up here, you know. We're not getting out of control. And when I was in those periods of life, when I was getting out of control and when things were getting out of hand, I wasn't around my true friends. I wasn't around people who actually cared about me. I was around people who wanted to make money, or people who wanted to have a good time at anybody else's expense. It didn't matter whose it was.
I find with those kind of people, it's also that they want to pull you back in, down to their level. They're sort of stuck in that place of negativity, and, you know, they're using the drugs and the alcohol, and they're using this to sort of avoid or self-medicate or whatever.
Yeah.
And they want to pull you back down to make themselves feel better about themselves, because if they can pull you down, then, well, you're just the same as them.
Yeah.
You're not shining brighter, you're not evolving, you're not growing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make them feel bad then. So it's easier. We'll just give him the drugs, pull him back in, keep us happy.
Yeah. You know? Exactly. And that's why there is a huge difference in the things that are, there's a lot of things out there that you're not supposed to do that you do, but there's a reason why you have intentions of what the purpose of the project or what the purpose of the thing actually is to do, you know. And there are mistakes that happen. Like, I mean, I'm sure in massive scales people make mistakes all the time and make a bad decision, but at the same time you have to trust in the intention that you're doing it with. And if you're planning to do something for a bad reason, then you best believe that if it doesn't work, you can only blame yourself, you know. If you're doing it to hurt someone else and it blows up in your face, then it's your own doing. And, you know, that leads to a lot of people's traumas, where they try to get revenge, they end up losing again, and they get shown up in a bad face, and it sends them even more further into their distress, into the point of where they're actually wanting to destroy the person even more, or they're wanting to destroy themselves even more, you know, make an even bigger point and they're stuck in a cycle where they'll never win, you know. You'll never win in a battle like that, where you're trying to do things for the wrong reasons. If you ever feel like you're stuck and you don't know what to do and you don't have any friends and you're really not sure what's going on, then you should really look at what intention you're doing each thing of your life for. Is it a job you want to be working in? Because if not, then maybe your ability to wake up in the morning is affecting the rest of your daily life. It's maybe affecting the friends that you're having around you, you know. People who sell cars are different from people who are architects, you know. And it's a personal choice of what job you want to do. And it's something that when you're good at something and you know you love it, it's so apparent. It's not like, oh, well, I kind of like playing guitar, so I'm going to be a musician. No, like, these people they play guitar 24 hours a day on their sofa and they can't not play guitar. You know, it's so apparent to them that that's what they should do. So when you do have a skill, or whenever you're looking for a skill, just that will guide you in a way that will help you find like-minded people as well. That's probably where a lot of my friends came from too, because I stuck at sports. You know, I was in football teams. These people weren't just getting drunk all the time. They actually went to football training, you know. And if you wanted to join like a boxing club or a swimming club, these things are all so good for keeping your mind away from the devil's workshop, essentially, you know, where it's maybe empty and you're looking to fill it with something. Whereas if you have it filled with something already, then you're taking the best and you're trying to give out the best at the same time without too much doubt forming in your mind, you know.
I think it's important there when you mention about the people you surround yourself with, because and I'm just going to compare this to my teenage years. Like, I surrounded myself with friends who did like to get fucked up, to smoke a lot of weed, or eventually we progressed into other drugs and abused them effectively from the age of 16, like I said, up until I stopped and became sober at the beginning of 2019. But it's the people you surround yourself with, you know. If you surround yourself with people that are happy to be like that, you know, narrow-minded people, you'll be narrow-minded. You'll have the same outlook as them. If you surround yourself with people that self-sabotage, you'll self-sabotage. If you surround yourself with people that are wanting to improve themselves, you will improve yourself. If you surround yourself with successful people, you will be successful. So I think that's, hearing your upbringing there, and that it's different to mine. There's similarities, but we both made the choices to surround ourselves with these particular groups of people and then go down these different paths that have ultimately led us to where we are sitting recording this right now. But
and that's a really good example of how we all have our own shit and our own paths to go through to get to the exact same point. I mean, we're in the exact same point right now, you know, and yet the paths are so different, and they will be. They will always, you know, be intangibly different to anyone else as well. It's what makes you, and what makes me, and what makes the reason why we're talking to each other now. You know,
it's another one of those synchronicities that the universe presents. Like, we met in the farm. We weren't really mates. We wouldn't even really have spoke, apart from, oh, you from Northern Ireland? I saw mine, and just go on to pick the strawberries. And then obviously we knew each other a little bit from LA before you went to New Zealand. And then here we are now, connecting more on a deeper level, because as you said a couple of weeks ago, we both had to learn something or change something in order for this to happen. We weren't ready for the connection back when we first met, but now we are.
And you can almost see as well, like, just even from that experience alone, you can see how obvious the signs can be as well. You know, there was never any reason for you not to like me or me not to like you, and we were in each other's company enough to be close, but we just weren't. And there was no doubt, like, it wasn't ever like I was thinking, oh, this guy doesn't like me, you know, or maybe he thinks I look too much like him, so he's getting weirded out, you know. Maybe he's looking in the mirror.
But that's when I had hair back then. That's when I had hair, so we would definitely have looked more alike than we are sitting here with my big bald head at the moment. Definitely.
But yeah, like, and it's so apparent there was no reason for it not to happen. But there's also no reason to put any pressure on it. There was no reason for me to really push and go, no, I need this guy to be my friend, because we both have the same interests, and I need this guy to understand me. No, like, when we're ready, we will understand each other perfectly fine, and we won't have to use any, you know, magic language to do it. You know, we'll just be able to talk about the past and realize where we are in that moment and move into the future, you know.
Just had to pause for a toilet break there, ladies and gentlemen. We were actually just talking as we were off camera that when we did meet not on the farm, but the second time around, when you were, obviously I met Ellie, your partner, before I knew her, and then you came, and she had already had this expectation, as you said, that me and you would be like, oh, you two need to be mates because you're both from the same country, you both look alike, you're both similar interests, you know, blah blah blah, all this here. And then you were saying we never gelled. And what I was explaining to Carl was I didn't allow myself to sort of get to know him or click with him, because back then, this would have been 2 years ago, this was very much at the beginning of my own personal and spiritual evolution and growth, still very much unawakened and naive, still very much trapped in my mind and ego and old patterns. But I felt that I couldn't get to know him because I was almost intimidated by him, like threatened by him. I grew up always, as I was just saying to you, that I used the gym as an outlet after my parents' divorce, and after the trauma of that and never being able to process it or deal with it, never having the opportunity as a boy. I went to the gym, and the gym was my outlet. I never processed it, I never worked through it emotionally, but I grew up always wanting to, if I look good physically, then I will feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And then when I see others that are in better physical condition than me, it makes me sort of, and this is back then, it's not anymore, it makes me sort of emasculate it, and then I don't feel confident, and you slip into these comparative ways of thinking. Oh, I don't look as good as this person, therefore X, Y, and Z, or if I don't look like this person, he must be a better person than me, and I kind of forgot my own worth and value.
Yeah.
And I guess I never allowed myself to explore that, because back then I still hadn't done the work I needed to do in order to let those ideas go and take myself out of it, stop comparing myself to people. It's like, I can be friends with this person, it doesn't matter if they are physically better than me. There'll be something that you maybe look at me and think, oh, I wish I had that, and maybe there's not. But I think as people, we do that. You compare yourself to another person,
especially their strengths.
Yeah.
Especially their strengths. Like especially if you have a relationship with someone, or you have the potential chance of having a relationship with someone, then I think everyone will have that moment, will have that thought, and some people maybe are used to dealing with it. I mean, it all depends on your growing up as well. I'm pretty sure if you've been bullied your whole life going up into high school, quite aggressively, or if other things that happened to you, had other mini traumas or big traumas that have changed your mindset and how your coping mechanisms deal with those situations, then that's all it really is, because I feel like everyone has the exact same thoughts and goes through the exact same transition, because it's in the media, it's in the TV we watch, it's in the music we listen to. There's always comparison in everything, so you can't help your mind but go there. But some people have just different ways of having their coping mechanisms. Some people try to go out of their way to put someone else down to make themselves feel better. This is a perfect example. But then there's also some people out there who go completely into themselves and do the opposite. They destroy themselves in that room, and then they actually put themselves down more and more, trying to humble themselves, but in the end actually defeating themselves.
I've been in both of those situations. I've been the putter downer, and I've been the putter downer of myself.
Yeah.
And they're both equally as unhelpful and unproductive to anyone, really.
Yeah.
But as you're just elaborating there on the what were you saying before we muted? It was about being scared of your ego.
Yeah.
Sort of being scared of your own ability and success, that you didn't want to be, because you said you're a high achiever, you always have been, similar to me. We've always excelled in whatever we do.
Yeah.
But you don't want to come across as some arrogant or cocky, I'm good at this, so look at me. You don't like that. I don't like the spotlight. I don't like the limelight.
Yeah.
But that kind of comes part and parcel with success and achievement.
Yeah.
And I guess what I wanted to actually ask was, because as we've been talking, it's came up to me. I sort of feel similarly to that, and it's almost as if I know my capability and power, and I know that if I want to do something, I'll do it. If I want to be successful in something, I'll do it. But I'm almost scared to allow myself to step into that, because then, as you were saying, you're on that pedestal, and you might not put yourself there.
Yeah.
But in the eyes of others, you're on that, and then there's a sort of expectation. And I almost feel sort of a bit like a wanker. If I do achieve this, then what are they going to think of me? If I almost feel like I don't deserve the success. So instead of going for it,
Yeah.
I just stay.
Yeah.
Don't take that risk. Don't get put in the pedestal. Don't be that guy. Don't be that wanker that has all the money or
Yeah.
whatever, you know?
Yeah. So that everyone pass judgment. I think a lot of that comes from our upbringing. I look at a lot of people through traveling. We meet a lot of French, and man, the confidence in French people is just oozing out. But at the same time, they have that self-belief that they can come to a country and they can't even speak the language and they still get a job, and they have that determination too, you know. And it's really, their determination comes from, yes, their arrogance and confidence in themselves, but I always admired that as well, like, because we come from a place where it's not good to be successful. You lose your friends when you become successful. When you start to have money, people start passing judgment, and so it's that fear of doing well. Even just like you start studying for exams in school and your friends aren't, or you're doing, you're a nerd, you're getting picked on, you know, you're being put to the bottom of the pile in school, so is that you're made to feel small, and that just sticks with you, you know. That ends up sticking with you for a long time.
Your whole life for some people. Some people can never break that. Yeah,
it is. It's such a hard thing to try and like break through, especially a personal confidence. I mean, no one can just hand you a personal confidence. You can either just have it or you don't, you know. There's people out there like actors and performers who just live for it.
But even then, they might not even be confident. They could be just projecting that. Like a lot of actors would be introverted. Same as, you know, you and I. You're an artist, you're creative, as am I. As a DJ, as a performer, I'm introverted. You know, I don't like to be up on that stage. I go up there, do my job, I enjoy playing the music. It fulfills me to give that to people. But I don't want people to come up and, you know, pat my back and take pictures with me. I don't want to be that, you know. But some people love that. But for me, it's like, whoa, man, you know, I don't want this. I'll give you a piece of my soul here, but then that's all you're getting. Just leave me to it. I need to go home and just chill now and be by myself. You know.
And I think that's also to do with the timing thing as well. It's a bit like before we met, and we didn't know what expectations to have, but we just had to go through along the path until we were ready to have this conversation, and we were ready to actually, you know, do this podcast. And it's kind of a similar scenario where you might not be ready now, and you might not ever be ready, but it could be a possibility in the future. You know, there is a chance, or there is a time when you don't know how you're going to feel, but eventually you will have achieved, or maybe it's in a personal goal, but once you've achieved or you've hit that barrier of your personal goal for what you wanted to achieve in that project or in that thing or in that moment,
gives you confidence.
That is when you will feel happy and content to broadcast that. And when you get the reassurance, it will feel more accepting, because I think you will, just like the farm work where you feel like you deserve to be in Australia now, you know, we've earned our right to be and have fun and do all the things 100%. That we do, you know. I think it's the same way. I think that it might not feel like that now, but one day there's going to get to a point where you're going to have something you're so proud of that it's the moment that you were waiting for, and that feeling will just come naturally. But the fact that you don't feel that now, you know, you don't want that sort of recognition and attention, is because you're just at the beginning, you know. You're just a seed that's coming up and growing into something that you don't know how big it's going to get or how good it's going to be or anything. But once you realize its potential and you reach the goal that you're looking to reach, like, I truly believe everyone will eventually accept their entitlement to what it is that they're going to be rewarded for. And it's not like, you know, it's not just about the money. It's not just about getting $1,000 or whatever to play a big set somewhere, or to go and do something, or go on a radio show. It's really a personal thing. It could be as small of a goal as to make one podcast, or it could be as big of a goal as to start your own radio or your own like talk show. But once you reach it, you will be happy with that recognition, you know.
I think it's important. I just had to write some stuff down. When you're saying about deserving, and I think this is a really important thing for a lot of people. It's like you were saying there, we've done farm work, so now we feel we deserve to be in this country. But in order to earn that deservance, I don't know if that's a word, but whatever, we had to go through this and achieve this in order to deserve it. But why do we not deserve to be here without that? Why do we, just speaking hypothetically here, why can we not deserve to be here without having to do that? Why do we have to achieve this thing in order for us to feel deserving of whatever it is we want?
So yeah, I think whenever it's not just a feeling of deserving it. I think the fear or the problem is that eventually, if you feel like you deserve everything without actually doing anything for it, without creating something for the reward that you get, then that form of entitlement kind of spills over, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're entitled to everything that you have gotten without actually having to earn it, or without having to actually go out and grasp it, you know. So there's maybe children out there who deserve to go on holiday, and they've had a tough life and they deserve a lot of things, but they don't actually ever get it, you know. And there's people out there who don't really deserve to have money and really have tainted views on what money allows them to have and what power money gives them, and it then spills over and allows them to feel entitled about the things, and you can't enjoy it fully. Then it'll get to the point like what do you call that movie with Macaulay Culkin in it?
Home Alone?
No, not Home Alone.
That's the only one I know, man, to be honest, with Macaulay Culkin. He's only done Home Alone.
No, well, he basically acts a kid who's rich and owns a mansion, and in the end he struggles, so much to make friends at times, because he's entitled. He thinks everyone has a ride-on lawnmower and everyone has a bowling alley in their house, and that everyone has all this stuff, and yet they don't. Nobody has that stuff, and they all deserve to have fun. They're all kids. So yeah, I think I've never felt like I was ever going to be one of those people. I never felt like I was going to be an entitled child, because I never asked for anything. I would never ever ask anybody really for anything. If people wanted to give, or I would be honest, I would tell them about my situation. I would tell them I want to go to university, or I would tell my parents that I want to do driving license. But if nothing was offered, then I would have to find a way to go and get about it myself. If I've got to buy driving lessons for myself, then I got to get a part-time job, because how am I going to afford a car in the first place? And that's where I think deserving kind of works its way into it, because once you do something that you deserve and you complete the goal in which you have that belief for, then you kind of have that formula to give you the answer of how you can get the next thing that you want as well.
But who sets the level of deserving? For example, what you may feel you deserve after achieving whatever could be different to mine. So I guess who decides who's deserving and what action makes you deserving?
Yeah. I think the level in which you feel you deserve anything that you feel entitled to, or anything that you're doing, it'll come from a past of where you've been set in a complacent way to more or less always be feeling like you deserve a certain amount, or you deserve a certain thing. So if your parents, or if some of your family members, you do well in your exam and you get rewarded, so you get taken out for a meal that day, then that's what you deserve. That's to you. You've no one else to tell you what you deserve, other than you get an A from the teacher and you get a nice dinner with your family for getting that grade. But for some people it's getting a car. They get an A in an exam and they're 17, or they do well in their exams and they get a brand new car. And so then that'll give that person's entitlement a much higher barrier, as opposed to what the person who's maybe happy enough getting a meal for their A. And so yeah, it's probably the culture, or the whatever it is, the household in which they're brought up in, will create them tendencies for entitlement and what you feel that you deserve as a person.
I think I agree, because if we compare, obviously you were there at the beginning whenever I launched Hidden Haciendas, that events business, and started to step into that DJ role, and all of the things that I had achieved. It's like every event, it just got bigger and bigger, and there was just more success and more success. But part of me never felt like I deserved any of it. And I put my heart and soul, I put my life into doing that. You know, it was my main job. It was the only thing I did. It was that consumed my life. But I never felt like I deserved any of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that, as you're saying, it's because I grew up in a, and again, because I'm just obviously conscious my parents might listen to this, and what I'm about to say is not to blame, you know.
Yeah.
But I came from a home where my father would have been quite critical, and again, it's not criticism of him, but that's something that you internalize. So as you're saying, you don't feel you've deserved this unless you've done X amount of work. And that's also cultural with us in Northern Ireland. We come from a country where the amount of work, not how smart you work, but how hard you work, is indicative of how much you should be rewarded.
Yeah.
So if you do 10 hours of work a day, but I do too, and I get the same amount of work done, you should get more than me because you put more time in for the same output. But I think, again, just in agreement that it's definitely a mindset. It's definitely cultural for us.
Yeah.
100%. And at least for me anyway, it's family, and it's sort of learning to unlearn that.
Well, it's trying to set your own expectations in the end. If you can set your own expectations of a bar and a level that is reasonable, you know, and it's not about not reaching for the stars. You can reach as far as you want, but the expectation should never overreach the actual reality of the act. Otherwise, you're always going to fall short. You know, you're always going to feel like you're not quite making it to where you want to make it to. Us
Aquarians have grand expectations, grand desires that we oftentimes don't meet. But
but then that's the whole thing with setting goals. Like, you can have more than one goal at more than one level, and still be appreciative of that one goal that you've met. You know, so I mean, maybe there is a moment in life when you do pass an exam and you do deserve a car type of thing, you know, but in reality, I think if you were to pass a GCSE in maths or English, it doesn't actually equate to saying that you deserve a car, or you deserve a house, or you deserve, you know, this. Like, these are all things that also should inherently give you value towards yourself in life anyway.
It should give you satisfaction. It shouldn't be about the reward. Obviously, the recognition, especially as a kid, is important. It's important to be acknowledged and recognised by your peers and your family. But, as you say, especially when you get older and you break out of that, you need to eventually let go of that idea that I'm doing this because I want other people to acknowledge me. I'm doing it for me and the value it gives to me. Because if you live your life, at least for me anyway, I almost destroyed myself doing the Hidden Haciendas because it was, I guess it wasn't for me. It was to, if I achieve this, then people will still respect me, you know? The wrong intention behind doing it. Because then you're never going to be satisfied in your mind with that until you're comfortable in your own deserving and your own value and own worth. I deserve this just because I deserve it. I've done the work and I deserve it. Not because other people say I deserve it, because I know. I know I deserve it. That was a big shift for me. Took a long time, a lot of pain, suffering to sort of break that idea that other people need to do that for me. Allow me to accept. Allow me to be deserving. But I can allow myself. You know?
Yeah. Definitely. We can definitely be our own biggest influence in life, you know. And there's parts in life that you can let go of, you know, you can sort of veer away from and realize that's not something that I want to be a part of, or that's not the way I want to do it. And there is a way you will be able to see that you can see the answers, you can feel the road is right, or maybe the people is right, you know. It's good to have expectations, just not good to set unrealistic goals whenever you don't have you have your full potential ahead of you. So already setting a bracket on it or an expectation on it is going to hinder that ability, you know, the ability for potential to grow. And the smaller your potential gets, then it feels like the smaller the goal will slowly start to become. Whereas as long as the potential can stay amazing, like even if you're not reaching the goal straight away, as long as the potential's there, as long as you're still out actively making the days happen, making the conversations happen, like actively thinking about it, actively waking up and going to sleep about it, and choosing that way to be your life, then it will feel much easier to get to the goals that you're wanting to get to, you know, if you view it as a potential rather than an expectation.
I think that's interesting point to raise, because as we were talking about earlier this afternoon, whenever I was doing that part of my life, even probably up until that point, it was all about, as an Aquarian, with, you know, the end goal is the final visionary place you want to get to. I can see what I want in my mind, and until I get there, I can't be content or at peace or happy. But as we were saying downstairs, it's like now, you know, my outlook on life has changed significantly enough that I can now appreciate the journey itself. So I know where I want to get to, I know what I need to do to get there, but I can enjoy each step, I can enjoy each lesson, I can enjoy the process, I can enjoy all the little goals, I can enjoy all the little failures, I can enjoy it all, because it's all part of the process, man.
Yeah.
And it's just life.
Yeah.
Just go out, do what you need to do. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn, but that's just the process. Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep waking up.
So lastly, Carlos, just to round it out, obviously we're both men sitting here with our deep men voices. I guess I just want to know, how do you feel about emotions? How do you feel in regards to your own emotions? Do you feel connected emotionally to yourself, or would you say that you're able to emotionally express yourself, etc., or do you find any difficulty with doing that?
I have more of an emotional connection with people than I do have with myself. I think that I feel a lot more things, especially for other people, more than myself as well, like without meaning to, really. Like if I had a car accident and I was a wee bit hurt, I would brush it off, you know, and I would say, yeah, I had a bad accident, but I'm okay, I'll be fine. But if somebody else had an accident and one of my friends have an accident, it's like, oh no, you gotta have water, you know, you gotta have this, and really, like, I'm worried about them. So I feel like my emotions are much more connected to other people and their experiences or their emotions than I am my own. And whenever I am confronted with my own emotions, I'm not afraid of them, I'm very accepting, but the moments just come a wee bit more few and far between for me to kind of understand what it is to fully, like, cry and wail and feel emotions. Like when I see things like that, or, you know, even in movies or even in programs or anything where you really see people and they're in pain, and it's like a physical heartache, you know. And I've had my heart broken before, I know what that feeling is like, but it's really hard for me to connect with that feeling on a sort of regular basis, or on a you know, even a yearly basis. You know, even whenever it comes to death, I don't feel highly emotional connection. I actually feel a slight bit of calm, you know. I feel like whenever moments like that come, there has to be a breath that is taken, you know. When you have moments of silence for people who have died, that for me is how I feel I deal with those kind of things that involve emotional scenarios, you know. I really can appreciate the fact that I don't need to feel everything at once, but I also need to experience what it is that is going on, understand what is happening. And so if I understand that someone has died, then I have to go through the process of helping the people around, you know, help organize the funeral, help doing all these things, and those are kind of my coping mechanisms. I don't feel like I try to kind of take a moment aside and really, really feel emotion whenever I don't feel like I deserve it. You know, it's weird. I don't understand fully why, but yeah, like I think maybe because growing up I was always around men who also didn't cry, and maybe that was a thing that I took upon myself to realize, but I don't feel afraid, or I don't feel intimidated to be connected in that way, you know. I think it's just kind of my brain and how it sort of deals with the situations that I'm in, that I don't connect scenarios or things with emotion, and it's probably why I forget things a lot of the time as well, because I don't actually have an emotional connection to things. I have a very logical way of thinking, and I have a very logical perspective whenever I come into any situation, even if it affects me personally. It's like I can always view it from another perspective and not just my own. So, you know, like I said, even with a family member dying, you know, like even when my grandfather died, I felt like the biggest emotion I'd ever felt in the world, but it didn't feel logical to me to use the pain to cry. I felt like I needed to use the pain as my strength to help my family around me, and to actually be the friend rather than be the grandson, or rather than be the, you know, the son. I really felt like I just needed to be a family friend, you know. Too logical.
Aquarius.
Too black and white.
Aquarius, like.
Yeah.
I think a lot of men struggle with that, though.
Yeah.
Disconnecting. I think I just want to emphasize here that you would be an empath. You're very empathic, similar to me, similar to Ellie, your partner, similar to Charlie, my partner. We're the four of us are very, like, for me, if I'm watching a really emotional, I'm watching House, the TV show House at the moment.
Yeah.
And I swear, man, I've never cried more in the past 2 months than I have in my entire life. Just there's so much raw emotion and truth. It's the like truthful moments when that main character, something, you know, there's a little bit of his humanity is illuminated. It just brings me to tears. Or I remember actually crying on the sofa in front of Charlie. First time I've ever been able to cry in front of her. You know, a really emotional moment. I cried because a baby was born.
Yeah.
You know, just for not like howling tears, like wailing, man. And then it kept going and going, and I just allowed it to come. And then it was sort of like an emotional traumatic release, because then I started like almost screaming about how I had been traumatized by the divorce of my family, and it went all down that road, and all of this anger and sadness and hurt that I had been carrying with me since that event that I'd never allowed to come out. I sat in the sofa like a 5-year-old boy, and she cradled me, and I just cried about all of that hurt and pain.
When someone's giving birth on the television.
Yeah, just that. See, just inconsequential, not related at all. Just a beautiful moment. Just a baby being born.
Well, it's a nice symbol, you know.
Yeah.
The birth of your emotions.
Yes, exactly. But I think for a lot of men listening to this, especially from men back home in our country, in Northern Ireland, we reject that part of ourselves. Yeah. We view it as weak to be emotional, or to be connected to your emotions, or what people often say at home, oh, you're gay if you're emotional, or if you cry, you know, that old thing you used to get when you were growing up.
Yeah.
It's like, but you're not, man, you know?
Yeah.
We're men. Doesn't mean you can't be emotional. It doesn't mean you can't cry. Doesn't mean you can't love. Doesn't mean you can't get hurt. Doesn't mean you can't get depressed. You know? It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to cry. It's necessary to cry.
Definitely.
Know? It's a release of, I don't know, and it's also breaking down that societal impositions that get put on us, that we're not allowed to cry because we're men, but we can break that.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Show other men that you can cry. You can talk about this.
Well,
you can put it on a podcast and talk about it.
It actually makes you stronger, though, in the end, you know, to be more connected with your emotions and yourself, even if it is, you know, like, even like I said, you know, I'm not a big crier, and I used to really wish I was. Like, I used to think there was a problem with me, you know. I used to sit and think, like, why am I not crying? Like why can I not just cry? But now I'm at a point where I'm willing to accept that that's just not who I am right now, even in this moment. That's just not who I am. Like, I have friends in my life who are the opposite, and friends who are the exact same, you know, who are able to feel and express themselves in the exact same way. And yeah, like, it is definitely makes you stronger, being able to at least connect with your emotions, at least be able to accept who you are in your true self or your true form, and not to worry about what anybody thinks, especially regards to your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you regard what other people think about your emotions, then you're gonna be basing your emotions on other people's judgment always as well.
To me, when you do that, you're putting the control and power of your life and in your life into the hands of other people. Because if you let the perceptions and judgments of other people dictate who you are or what you're going to be or how you're going to be, then you ain't being yourself, man.
Yeah.
You know, you're continually living in the eye of someone else.
Yeah.
And you're not ever going to find out who you are. And I guess to me that's just sad.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people still live like that. You know?
Well, you'll end up feeling like a stranger to everybody, you know? When you can't connect emotionally with another human being as well, then if you're suppressing emotions, that's going to stop those connections from happening. I mean, that's a perfect example as well. Like, you know yourself, what it's like whenever you do start to have that breakdown, and the breakdown starts to happen, you all of a sudden, you feel like you've got no friends.
Mm.
And it's not even really like you haven't got any friends, but you've emotionally disconnected from those moments and those times and those days, and you're not sharing that same connection and that same openness to then allow for those moments to continue to happen. And then you try to find blame, you try to blame other people. I think whenever I was in Australia or in New Zealand, I was going through a really hard time, and my best friend was in Wellington with me, you know, like we'd travelled together, came to Australia together, and we'd known each other for a long time. And when I was going through my really hard time in Wellington, I started to realise that there was a wee bit of distance, you know. I was like I'm not getting a text message back, or I'm not getting a reply, or I'm sending, you know, my emotions out there, but there was not really anything being received back. And at the beginning, I was using that as a form of resentment. I was falling out with my best friend without her even knowing it, you know. And I was holding this resentful feeling of where I was there for her whenever things have gone bad or whenever times have been difficult, and I felt like she wasn't being there for me whenever my times were going bad. And it wasn't until I just sat down in the gym and I just looked at everyone and went, I don't give a fuck what any of these people think. And to be honest, the fact that I have that level of expectation on my best friend is already the wrong way to go and the wrong way to be, you know. I was like, she doesn't owe me anything for anything that I done to her. I give to her wholeheartedly, the time and the emotion and the ability to, you know, be open. And when she can, she will give that to me. She's my best friend. But in those moments, just because she wasn't there, I was holding her, like I was blaming her, you know. And it was really, really difficult for me to go through that without feeling like I had nobody, you know. And especially my best friend, after being so close to my best friend, being so far from home. And I just put all that pressure onto her for no reason other than my own ego, other than for the fact that I offered to help her on all the times that she was going down, and I should just be doing that without any intention at all, other than without an expectation. Exactly. Like, I'm there, I'm her best friend, and if I'm there to help, I'll help. And there'll be loads of times where I wasn't there for her as well, whenever she was in another country and I was somewhere else, you know. And I really had to step out of that. I felt like I was going blind, you know. Like, I felt like I was losing my friends, I was losing my best friend, and I wasn't. It was all in my head. It was just me. And when I met my best friend again, like 2 weeks later or something, and she couldn't be more sorry, you know. She was like, come to my house and have dinner tonight. It wasn't like that. Like, I just had my own life going on, and I had my own stresses, and I just couldn't reply. But I was just holding all that expectation on her, you know.
I feel you, man. And I think it's really important, and it's a good way to end this, that you had this expectation of her. You know, it wasn't what you had given her, it wasn't being reciprocated, because you had this expectation of, you know, what to give and receive. But you hadn't considered that at that time she had all this other shit going on in her personal life, you know. Maybe she wasn't able to give you what you needed, because she didn't have that to give to herself. And I think especially, again, and I'm always circling back to Northern Ireland here because it's so relevant, at least in my family and my upbringing, that it's okay to be, and I'm going to use the word selfish, but selfish isn't the word because it's the wrong word. It's okay to prioritize yourself over other people, and you don't have to feel guilty about that. If you can't be there to help a friend in need because you can't help yourself right now, you need to help yourself first, man. Can't help anyone else if you don't help yourself.
Definitely.
But a lot of people struggle with that. It's, I need to help this person, I need to give, and I need to do that, but I can't do it for myself. We're going to leave it there.
Sounds good.
Thanks very much for listening and watching, guys. If you're still here, thank you very much, Carlos Finlay, for
Thank you for having
making
me.
an appearance. Hopefully we'll have you back on soon.
Yeah, sounds
Cool.
good.
Enjoyed it.
We'll catch up with more stories.
Yeah, easy. And with that, guys, with peace, love and joy, we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
See you soon.